One. Welcome, Brandolyn Thran. I am thrilled to get to have time with you again. We enjoyed meeting one another at the Education 2.0 conference, where you did get awarded an award for being a transformational leader in the field. And I'd love to get to hear more about the work that you're doing in the world. Please do share.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the invitation to be here today. And I am the Associate Director at Nevada Outdoor School, which is located in Elko and Winnemucca, Nevada. So we are in northeastern Nevada, very rural communities. And our purpose and mission is to get people outside and to connect with nature. And so we inspire exploration of the natural world. We work to help people understand stewardship or caring for our natural habitat where we live, and then providing service into our community. So taking care of each other, taking care of nature, as humans are part of nature. We are not separate from that. And so at Nevada Outdoor School, we get the privilege and honor to work with people of all ages. We like to say we serve ages 0 to 99 plus. So we're not just a youth organization, but we very much enjoy and look for the opportunity to expose adults and help adults connect into nature, because oftentimes they're kind of forgotten. Like, we focus so much on youth in education, but if we believe that learning is lifelong, we're all just kind of big kids, big 5-year-olds, just in big bodies walking around. And so that's one of my favorite parts of Nevada Outdoor School, is that we serve all ages, not just youth.
Well, that certainly has been one of the themes that we've been addressing within this whole empowering educators context, is the importance of beginning with ourselves and transforming within in order to help transformation without. I especially want to acknowledge not only your role in the directorship of the Nevada Outdoor School, but also as an author and sending out important messages in that way. And would you like to tell us about your book?
Yes, so I completed my first book in 2021 at the very end, and I can show it. It's called Love, Lift Others, Value Everyone. And the subtitle is Become a Scattered Brilliance Ambassador and Celebrate the Individual. So one of the things, as I've grown up in the world and moved through a couple different career places and landed here in education, I really started to observe how individuals, we are oftentimes squelched, or our brilliance is dulled from a very young age because of expectations, systems, the way we do life. And so as I was growing through these different seasons of my own life, it really became important to me that we understand that love, we've oftentimes heard love as a verb, but it came to me one day that love is an acronym: lift others, value everyone. And this idea that if we could start to really embrace and understand that each one of us is such a gift, and each one of us has something brilliant to offer into this world, that we really could love everyone. And it's not about if I understand you, it's not about if I like you, if I get you, because maybe I don't, because you may be dynamically different than me, but that doesn't mean you have less value. It just means that you're different. And maybe I need to learn what that means and what that looks like and how to work inside of that. So anyway, I wrote this book. It's really a book on recognizing scattered brilliance. So I introduced that term. And how I like to think of scattered brilliance is we were not created to be lasers, meaning that everyone is alike and that we're lasers, but instead that each of us is a brilliant point of light. And when we're all together, we can fill up an entire baseball stadium. So those of us who are baseball fans, or other sports fans, you may remember when you're sitting in the stadium, and as the sun sets, they turn on those big lights and it's just floods the stadium, and it's like daylight, right? It's like you walk, sometimes you leave the stadium, you're like, oh my gosh, it's dark outside, because It is so bright. And that's kind of the vision I had with Scattered Brilliance is, instead of thinking we all need to be the same, we need to get in line, we need to get in a box, and we would be more like a laser, which is important and has its place. But generally speaking, I believe humans were designed to be scattered brilliance, and we fill up this universe with our awesomeness. So that's what it's about. So the book introduces that concept, and then it talks about systems, and it really is a book of questions. So I'm a why girl. I'm the girl who's always like, why? Probably teachers were always like, oh, Brandolyn, because I need to understand why. Like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And so I tend to be a question girl. I think what I'm learning are why people tend to be question people, right? Like, ask a lot of questions. And so what this book really does is sets up some questions we can be asking in our own worlds and in our own systems, and to help us understand how might our systems be limiting scattered brilliance. And my two passions are religion and education. Those are just my two passions. So the book has a lot of examples into those two worlds, religion and education. But I think it can be expanded to any system if we start to ask, why are we doing it this way? And is it good for humans?
And I very much hear the concept of embracing spirit within the path. And so in the theme of uniting body, mind, and spirit, I'm just wondering about how you walk between those worlds in terms of education. And you're even naming it religion. Religion is maybe separate from the spirituality of experiencing your inner spirit and how you're expressing it in the world, whether you're religious or not. How do you invite those pathways for the expression of the inner spirit expressing outwardly?
Great question. And I think one thing we've developed here at Nevada Outdoor School that transcends all things is what we've learned. We didn't develop it that way, but I think it answers your question well, is this idea of action, impact, choice. And when we start to recognize that as a human, we have a lot of choice, but sometimes we have to learn that we have choice. But we have choice that allows us to maneuver inside our world. And so how we choose to honor and show up for our spirit, how we choose to honor and show up for our body, how we choose to honor and show up for our mind, that really, a lot of it is our choice once we recognize that we have that choice. And so we have this model that we call action, impact, choice. So we evaluate, or we analyze our actions. So we think of all the things that we could do. Like, there's a million choices for anything that we do. So we analyze that and we think, what are our different actions? And then we evaluate the impacts of what those actions may be. So depending on if I choose action A, these are the impacts to myself, to nature, to those around me. And then action B, these are the impacts. And so we can slow ourselves down to think about actions, impact. And once we've done that analysis, and it could be like instant, or it could be something, maybe you're taking notes, you're journaling, you're talking with others through this action impact, then we can choose wisely. And I think when we really understand we have choice and we can make wise choices, then we can better nurture that relationship, not only in our own internal mind, body, spirit, but how we interact with the world, really, and all those people in the natural world around us.
This is so key to one of the themes that's running through this summit is the power of choice, and that through empowering choice, and we can become active change agents. We can participate in our own evolution, which it seems like the larger world is calling for at this time, to be ever more conscious about how we are affecting one another, how our messages are affecting ourselves, and then how are we affecting our natural world.
Right.
Be very curious to hear about the programs and how you build relationship with nature in that context.
Well, so at Nevada Outdoor School, we do nature is our classroom. And so as much as possible, we are outside, and we play a lot of games that have meaning. And so we will do a game, and then we think about what possible outcomes could have been. Again, we analyze what the impacts could have been. And then we talk about, did we make the right choice? Could we have made a different choice? What may have happened if we did different choices? And so at Nevada Outdoor School, we do that through classroom lessons. So we push into schools and we support traditional learning. We are informal educators, but we are strong supporters of traditional learning. And so inside a classroom environment, we can come in and we bring the kids outside, which right there, you are changing the mind, the brain waves, you're changing a lot of physiology when you bring those kids outside the school building. And we believe there's no bad day. Like as long as we can, we get those kids out and they're just bundled up, and we have hats and gloves and things that we give these kids if we need to. So as soon as we bring them outside, we just have automatically changed their perception of what's happening, because now they're outside the school building. But we talk about how important it is that we can still learn, even though we're not inside a classroom, and that there's always learning to be happening. And then, like I said, we do a lot of games. It's a lot of fun. Like I would guess most kids and participants, they don't even really recognize they're learning until towards the end of our program, when we debrief or we do that quick, like, what'd you guys learn? What do you think about all this? And then they have these aha moments and they're like, I never even thought of that. I didn't even realize that. And so it's a really fun way of learning, because we're not lecturing them. We're not pointing fingers and telling them what they should and shouldn't do. It's much more self-discovery and kind of this like, oh, I never even thought of that. And then oftentimes we hear them leaving like, when I get home, I'm going to Google that, or when I'm going to go look this up, or I'm curious about this. And so I'd like to think we really inspire curiosity as well. And we get them thinking. One of the things that's really important at Nevada Outdoor School is we work very hard to never, ever teach people what to think, but we work to teach how to think. So we really want to engage that thought process and like thinking again, it goes back to our AIC, our action impact choice model. So we're not going to have judgment on what you do or how you do it. Our job is to get you to be thinking about it. And then we trust that you will make the right choice. That you can do that. You have the power within you. I don't have to tell you, you're going to figure it out, because we're going to give you some tools and we're going to give you some scientific facts, and we're going to give you some parts and pieces that you can assimilate in that beautiful big brain that you've been given.
That definitely is integrating the spirit within through empowering that inner voice. Mm-hmm. And then it's very much also like Montessori about creating a prepared environment. When you bring it into the prepared environment of just the natural world, and yes, letting them discover and explore, rather than you must do this now, must do that. It's a very different model.
Yes. And what's interesting is how kids, especially if we're focusing on youth now, but we also see it in adults, not as much, but for sure in youth, how much the youth struggle with the freedom that we give them to learn in what may be more intrinsically their way of learning. And so what we see, and any traditional educator would probably agree with me on this, they don't know quite what to do. Wait, there's not a blank to fill in. There's not a right answer. You're not going to tell me what I'm supposed to know. And at first they kind of freak out, and you can tell they're very uncomfortable, because it's a very different way of learning. And it's not fill in the blank, and the size of the blank determines how long your answer is supposed to be, right? Like we all know that trick. So the kids really you have to nurture that along, and we have to create a very safe space for them to grow into that capability of when Nevada Outdoor School comes, we're not looking for the answer. We're looking for thoughts. We're looking for ideas. And then from the science side, we'll correct what's the word I'm looking for? When it's wrong. There's a fancy word, but it's not coming to me. Like we'll correct the scientific stuff when they're not accurate. But if it's an opinion, if it's a thought, if it's something we're trying to move them into, we try to just allow them to do that in their context and in their relevance, because that's the other piece of this, is what's relevant to you may not be relevant to me, right? We come from different backgrounds, different cultures, different history, different events in our life. We're in different phases. And kids, like adults, there's a lot of things going on in their life. And so what I perceive as common sense or what I perceive as relevant may not be to the child I'm working with. So we try to meet the child where they are and figure and work inside what's relevant to them versus telling them what we think is relevant.
Interesting. So are you helping to facilitate discussion and like learning from one another in that context?
Lots of discussion, lots of pair sharing. So we'll put the question out and then we have them pair share, group up, have them have conversation, and then elect somebody to report out to us. And then we can have a larger conversation with the rest of the groups. And we can, we do a lot of thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down. If we're like, where are we in this? And we can ask, are we in agreeing? Are we, do we think it makes sense to us? Do we have more questions? And so, yes, we're very much facilitators of information. And like I said, we really want to inspire that curiosity and just to get kids excited and wondering. And then I think the other piece of this, and this is the other piece that really is that nurturing piece, is the ahas of like, what? I'm not alone. Someone else has this thought, right? And then you start connecting, and that deepens that connection. And now we recognize we're not alone in this world. And I'm struggling with this. You're struggling with this. I don't understand it. And you look around, right? Because how many times are we like, I want to ask a question, but I don't want to be the only one that doesn't know. So then we don't ask the question, but we try to facilitate like where it's safe so that we can ask questions. And then when you look around and everyone else is needing a question, you're kind of like, now I'm more brave. I'm going to ask a question because everyone else has a question to ask. So I think it's just allowing space for learning to happen, like I said, in a more intrinsic way than forcing it in, like, this is what you have to know and this is the chance you're going to get to learn it.
So I'm curious if an educator or an administrator is listening and saying, wow, I'd like to facilitate more connection with nature. What are some of the ways to do that in their present environment?
Well, wonderful you ask that. And that is one of our big goals at Nevada Outdoor School, is that we help teachers understand that you don't have to be an outdoor school to do this sort of work. And that's that idea of place-based learning. And you can do place-based learning on your playground. You can do it outside your classroom door, given the community that you're in. It's, schools are so varied that I'd hate to assume that any school looks like any other school. But one of our goals is to provide training and to be demonstrating as we're teaching the class. We always have the classroom teacher with us, and so that they can be seeing what we're doing. Because like I said, we're not doing big, complicated things. We're just getting the kids outside, and then we can use the natural world as the space. Sometimes it's just getting them outside those four walls. Just their brains blow up, expand when they can see the blue sky, they can smell the air, they have the wind. All of that is really sensory activating. So it starts to turn on our whole body instead of sitting still looking at a board. So to the administrator or to the teacher, I would say, try it, get your kids outside. And don't be afraid. Don't think it has to be this big field trip that you have to coordinate transportation and lunches, and like, don't go make it harder than it needs to be. Take your kids out on the playground, sit out on the basketball field and practice your multiplication facts. Like you can take what you're doing inside and move it outdoors and use nature just as a different container in which you're having this learning happen. And then you can look, and there's lots of resources on the internet, and you can always contact me, but you can take pieces of nature to facilitate whatever it is your content area that you're working on. So like kindergarten is an excellent one because kindergarten is so fun. Like sorting is a big standard in kindergarten. So instead of doing blocks inside, instead of doing all those inside things, take them outside, let them collect things around your playground, bring them back into a circle, have them sort. I don't know what you're going to find. Like, that's part of it. You kind of have to open up to be like, well, I wonder how this is going to go, because there's not going to be blue, yellow, and orange blocks anymore, but you might have brown leaves. You might have leaves with points and leaves with rounds. You might have leaves with stems, without stems. Like, I don't know, let the kids figure out how they're going to group it up in, but you're
Wow.
using natural objects. Maybe it's sticks, pieces of grass, bugs, I don't know. And that's part of it too, as an outdoor educator, is opening up into the possibility and not being quite so rigid on what it has to be. No,
That's
like,
a profound difference. Yes, I'm
yeah,
hearing like, so you could allow the kids to discover and share how they're going to sort. So
yes,
we're going to sort 3 different things. How are you going to categorize your things?
yes,
And then share, well, I found sticks, and then I found stones, and then I found leaves, or, however they chose to.
right, right. So you're facilitating, and isn't that where we're going in education? Our hope is, right, that we have less and less, quote, teachers, and we have more and more facilitators, and that we're facilitating the opportunity to learn, which means you, as a facilitator, you don't get to have control. You're not a control fanatic. You're opening up space, and there are some boundaries, and there are some expectations. So you have to be able to set your expectations. You have to know where you're moving those children or those participants to. You need to have an objective. You need to have a goal. It's not like we're like, hey, I hope this works out. So there are some prior planning that happened, but then you let go and you watch how the participants move you into that place, into that goal, and into that objective. So you know where you're taking them, but you are going to meet them where they are and move with them versus forcing them to come to you and then move. So it's a little bit different strategy, but like I said, it's not willy-nilly. You still need some goals, you need some objectives, you need some thoughts, like how we're going to get started here, because otherwise it won't happen. You can't just go out there and be like, I hope we learn about photosynthesis today, right? You have to kind of have a plan, but the opening up opens inside of that plan, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Would you like to give us any example of what that might look like in a specific way?
Well, I can tell you, we have a really cool field trip that we haven't done in the last 2 years because of our crazy world that we've been living in, but we're hopeful that we'll get to do it again in the future. But it was called Eco Fair, and it was a 5th grade. Now that I have not done it, I'm pretty sure it was 5th grade field trip. But we would invite in, we would have 13 stations, and it was all about ecology. And so it was like water requirements of plants, how seeds disperse, beaks of, right, different structure and function. So beaks of birds are a great lesson for structure and function, right? The microscopic world. So having some dissecting scopes there to see what you can't see with your naked eye, or that's very difficult. So anyway, we had 13 of these sessions, 13 of these stations that were all ecologically based. And then the children had a passport, meaning that inside they had the 13 stations, and the expectation was set that by the time 1.5 hours were finished, you will have visited all 13 stations. Now, traditionally, how we would set this up is, you can probably imagine, being a teacher, we all know how this works, right? You're going to be at every station for 15 minutes. And when I blow the whistle, you're going to go, and you have to stay in your group. Like, we overthink it, overplan it, right? We don't do that. For Eco Fair, that we set it up with our kids, and we say the expectation is by the end of 1.5 hours, you will have visited all 13 stations. And that's evidenced by, they're signing off when they visit the station. And after that, it's a free for all. Like, I don't care if you stay, you can group up with Johnny and Sue to go to this station. And then you might hook up with Pam and Bob to go to this station, because Pam and Bob are really interested in this, but they weren't. And then you may spend 30 minutes, like myself, I would spend 30 minutes looking in the microscope, but I'm not going to spend but 1 minute to get the idea of fire ecology. Like that just doesn't interest me. So now what you've created is you've exposed all the kids to the 13 areas, but instead of dictating how it's going to be done, you're giving them the trust that they are going to facilitate their own learning, and that they will get to all 13 stations, and that they will learn exactly what they need to learn for themselves and get inspired and excited about topics. And so I hope that answers your question, but that's an example. So that's Eco Fair for 5th grade. It's a little bit crazy. Yes. Is it a little bit chaotic? Yes. Do you really not know who's doing what? Yes. But evidence shows us that a huge percentage of those passports come back full. The kids are fired up and excited, and they're sharing as they're lining up to exit. They're sharing this information like, did you go here? And what did you see there? Well, I stayed longer and I saw this. And then because they haven't been stuck with the same 5 people all hour and a half, they're sharing amongst, so their besties are coming back together and like, oh, I went here, and did you know that so-and-so does this? And, like you just have this huge cross-pollination happening instead of this really rigid, very controlled. I get it. Like, I get it. I was a classroom teacher at one point. Like, I like control too. But anyway, so I hope that answers your question, but it's this idea of, again, having some structure, having the expectations, setting the kids up for success, setting the participants up for success, and then let them learn it. And you're there to facilitate, you're there to answer questions, you're there to help. And of course, there's going to be the 10% that need that guidance. And you're going to be like, okay, you are coming with me and we're going to walk around together until you can show me that you can handle this, right? You're always going to have that. But that's the minority. So let the majority run with it.
Wow, very clear parameters for safety to continue, and yet freedom within it.
Yes, exactly.
Now, you mentioned something really relevant and important. I think this connection with nature is all the more important because of the COVID time. And so I'm just wondering, how you passed through that and what your learning is around it. Did you turn more virtual? Like, how have you navigated that new territory?
Yeah, well, like everyone, we have shifted and learned and hopefully grown. So we did go virtual for a while, and we did do a lot of virtual lessons, and there's value in that. And we were mostly excited that we got to keep interacting with children, particularly in our school programs during the school years. What it taught us and just really reinforced to us was the importance of human connection, and that this screen, like, this is awesome and amazing, and it's such a wonderful tool, and we are so thankful for it, but there really is no substitute for being together outdoors, giggling and laughing and running around like crazy chickens and just being super excited. I think, though, we also really learned holistically as a world the importance of nature for healing, and to get outside and to connect your body, your soul with physical, natural grounds, walking barefooted in grass, feeling the sun on your face, getting in the wind. I think, I know in rural Nevada, we were very, very fortunate because we're rural. And so we didn't have some of the lockdowns that other places had, where you really didn't get to go outside for very long. We did not have to experience that. So thankful for that. But I think there's just tons of evidence coming out that if you're not outside daily for like 5 to 10 minutes plus, your soul really suffers for that. Our spirit is connected to that natural world. And I think that's for so many people for a long time, and for so many people currently, humans and nature are separate. They perceive them as two separate things. Like, there's humans and then there's nature. What we know and what we want people to really understand is that they're together, right? Humans are part of nature. That's why nature speaks to us. That's why we can find peace. That's why we can find such joy when we're outdoors, is because of that. It's that we are naturally meant to be outdoors. This built world that we live in is fantastic. I mean, I enjoy air conditioning and heat in the winter, and I enjoy not being in 30-mile-an-hour winds, but you also lose something when you don't experience that, at least for portions of each day.
Do you integrate times of meditation or mindfulness to sit and just feel what you're feeling, or sense the sunshine, or feel the wind on your face? Is that a part of it?
We are more and more. Since I've been on staff, that's one thing I'm working towards integrating, because personally, I find value in it. So in a leadership position, I'm able to help others see the value, and then it can become one of our practices at Nevada Outdoor School. But I wouldn't say traditionally we have done that, but we're moving in that direction, and just general reflection. But then, yes, sometimes just being still and using your senses and appreciating what's going on. And I think that's the in outdoor recreation, outdoor experiences, we oftentimes really only talk about the active experience. So the hiking, the biking, the kayaking, the mountain climbing, right? We can list a lot of outdoor activities, which are wonderful, but we also want to learn and start to really honor and respect the passive outdoor activities, which is what you are referring to, where you are just sitting in nature and you're actually slowing down to be in nature. And maybe it's reading in nature and taking a break and appreciating what you're hearing as you're reading your book, or painting in nature, right? It's a little bit what we call more of a passive recreation. Both have value. Both are very, very important. And oftentimes, like I said, we err on the side of like, you're outside, you got to be active, you got to be moving. But there's a lot to be gained by slowing down and simply being present inside of nature as well.
Do you find that these kind of experiences do facilitate transformation, or are you consciously working programs like, okay, we're going to aim for transformation, or is it just providing that context invites it? Like, how do you regard the whole concept of transformation?
I think another strength of nature is a wonderful equalizer. So when we take participants out into nature, whether it's in a playground at a school or backpacking for days out in the mountains, all of our education, all of our wealth, all of our cars we drive, like all of these things that kind of define and give us status, whatever that looks like, nature is the one place that all of that goes away in a lot of ways, because it becomes there's a mechanism of survival, and survival, not necessarily like you're surviving a traumatic event that you have to get through, like you're caught in a blizzard, but survival in that you have to live to move through the next phase. I hope I explained that right. But I say that because when we take people into nature and we put them in these experiences, you can't help but be transformed, because you're forced, like whether you even know it or not, you're moving in a direction, and you have to move that way, because it's not going to be done for you. No one else is going to do it, and you have to move through it to get to the next piece. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. So it's just integrated within the experience. It's a natural outcome.
It's like intrinsic. It's intrinsic. And so in a camp scenario, like when we take our 8 to 10-year-olds camping, a lot of our 8 to 10-year-olds, we call them our adventurer group. They have either never camped, they've never camped without a parent. So this is the first time they're going without a family member. And so in order to get through a night of camping, you have to do certain things yourself, and your parents are not around, and you're outdoors. So you have to put your tent up. You may have never put a tent up. I will help you, but I'm not going to do it for you. And so there's some transformation happening. You're having to figure out, you're having to think, and you're questioning, can I even do this? I can't put a tent up. I've never put a tent up. What am I supposed to do? And then 20 minutes later, let's hope it's not that long, but sometimes it is, there's a tent and your sleeping bag is rolled out. And now the child is like, I can put a tent up. I can do this. I'm capable. Right. And it's same thing. We take them out on the hike and we have several wonderful hikes, but let's say the hike is 1.5 miles. I've never walked 1.5 miles. I've never done this. Well, today's your day, kid. Here we go. Right. And they get to the lake and knowing these are experiences. The one thing I like, a phrase I like to use, these are experiences that no one can take away from you. Like when you've camped, you've put your tent up, when you've completed the hike, when you survived the game, even a game that takes you out of your comfort zone. And now you might have to hold hands with someone, or you might have to talk to someone, or you might have to be silly and act out something, but you did it. No one can take that away from you. And you start gathering those experiences, that's transformative. So it doesn't have to even be something big. It might be just tiny little things we're asking them to do that gives them, puts like marbles in their bag, right? Of like things you can't take away from me. Like this is mine. And so I think over time that bag adds up. And we've had kids now that we've had for multiple years, and they are just different kids. I mean, part of it is, of course, you grow up and you mature naturally, but I'd like to think we have a role in a lot of that. And these kids come back to us year after year and we're like, wow, look how much you've grown.
And celebrating the wins and the growth that you see,
Yes.
naming it helps to celebrate it.
Yes.
So I can feel like some educators might be really inspired listening to you and going like, "Ooh, I want more of that." Where would they go to find out more and get some strategies?
Well, NevadaOutdoorSchool.org is our website, is Nevada Outdoor School's website. And we have many of our lessons online that you can download. And then my contact information is there, and anyone can contact me and I'd be happy to try to connect them with the resource that they need. And then we have some fantastic staff members. So if I can't answer the question, probably one of our staff people can. So I would be more than happy. People can contact me there. And then with regards to my own personal work and with the book and just my own personal efforts to change the world and make it a better place, they can go to my website, which is brandolynthran.com. And there it's a work in progress, so be gentle with me, but there's my blog, and I have several different series of writings that I've done over the years that capture a lot of growth opportunities and transformation that I personally have walked through that may be helpful to others. Because I guess, I think I want to maybe towards the end with that, is that like who you see talking here today is not who I was 10 years ago. Right. And so I want people to understand that it's okay that you yourself, like Jill, you said at the very beginning, we have to do this work internally first so that we can take it out to the world. And so I encourage you, anyone who's listening, if there's this angst or anxiety, like, should I be trying to change? Should I be trying to make the world a better place? Like, yeah, and do it with courage and get brave and grow yourself into this place, like where I'm speaking, like, I feel like I'm sounding very confident, but I don't know how confident I am in real life, because I too am like, wow, this is new. Like, this is a new space for me in a lot of ways. So I guess I just wanted to say that, like, as an encouragement, that you don't have to have all the answers. You're not going to get it right the first time, and start small and grow from wherever it is you are into whatever it is you're supposed to become. Don't think you have to have it all figured out first.
I so echo that sentiment, because the journey of this summit has certainly been that kind of example as well, of just being able to hear that voice within that prods you to something more. And I noticed a profound shift for me personally from, turning off all the bad news, it just gets too much. And when I invested myself in something that was like, well, here's where I can make a difference, a positive difference. And then that's what starts to snowball in your life. And you're starting to draw others who are interested in making a positive difference. And that's where we really do find that we, as community that cares deeply, have the power to make profound change. And it starts within and it grows locally and it expands globally.
Yes.
Mm.
I had this aha several years ago now, but I keep coming back to it. It's this idea of a microcosm. Are you familiar with the idea of like each of us, like we live in this big cosmic world, huge world, but each of us have a little tiny microcosm that we're part of. It could be, and you can define your microcosm however you want. Like it could be your intimate family. It could be an extended family. It could be a school. It can be a community, like however you want to define your microcosm, that's up to you. But I had this aha that if every one of us worked towards excellence in our microcosm, whatever that means, again, like I don't know what excellence looks in your world, it looks what it looks like in my world. Like I want to be and I want Nevada Outdoor School to be world-class educators. I don't know that I can actually tell you what that is right at this minute, but I know that we're working towards excellence, we're working towards growth, we're always learning, we're always growing, we're always trying new things, because in my little microcosm world, I want excellence. And if each one of us did that, like you're saying, imagine the ripple effect that would start to happen. And so instead of thinking I have to change the world and shut down because I cannot change the world, I'm just responsible for just me, starts with me. I'm responsible for me, and I'm responsible for my 11 staff members and my, the 200 plus kids that will serve this summer, and the maybe thousands of kids will serve next school year. Like that's my responsibility. I don't need to look beyond that. And I think it just gives me encouragement, because otherwise I kind of get, like it's too much, it's too big, I can't do it. So anyway, I really enjoy coming back to that microcosm and remembering like, oh yeah, I'm in charge of my microcosm and I can do me. I can do this little group of people.
That's a profound shift, because when it's just like, oh, well, who am I to make a difference in this great big world? It's very different than, well, I can make a difference in my mind and heart and body. I can make a difference in my little community, that microcosm.
Yes.
And from there it grows out.
Right. And we never know, right? We never know. And there's so many stories. I don't have them on the tip of my tongue, but there's so many stories of the one person impacted that impacted the thousands, right? Like I might not impact the thousands, but I may be impacting the one that will. Right. And so my job isn't to worry about how many I'm impacting. My job is to worry about the ones that come into my world, to give them the very best that I can give them and help them connect their mind, body, and spirit, help them understand that relationship, help them see that they have choice and that they have responsibility. Like that's my job. And then my hope would be that they do impact millions of people over the years, but I don't have to worry about that. That's not my responsibility.
And speaking of sharing, I just want to really acknowledge, I love this book, and it is a wonderful way to impact others. It's very generous that you're offering it free.
Yes.
And so that will be within your links to be able to follow, to make direct connection with you.
Yes.
They can download that free gift and really get a difference and be inspired.
Yes, please. I look forward to sharing. It's very important to me that we spread the word, and that's my goal.
And you certainly are doing it today here. I'm so happy to just hear the positive message and to feel the difference it makes in my body. Even as you were talking about the body, I could feel myself sitting up more strong and breathing more deeply and radiating out, right? When we feed ourselves energetically, then we can become scattered, brilliant ambassadors, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And getting outside. Remember, everyone, we should all be outside a little bit every day. It doesn't have to be long. Even walking to your car, as you walk to your car tonight, as you leave your place of business, or you walk to the car to the grocery store, like look up, look around, listen, see what nature has to offer you, even in those little blips. It's good for your soul.
Indeed it is, indeed. Thank you, Brandolyn Thran. That's actually spelled Thran. For if people are looking for that website, then we'll have the link there, but just to understand. And I just want to say a namaste to you. The light in me sees the light in you. I'm thrilled to
Namaste.
make this connection and feel the power of community, even through the benefits of technology, and that we have a balance there, right? That it's
Yes.
not technology dominating our lives, but utilizing it in balance.
Absolutely. Yes.
Mm.
Yes.
So thank you, and we will see you around.